So in this section, we're going to cover setting up your walls, your columns, and the circulation, the steps. Okay, so the steps should start following all the way to the top. So the steps are going to be quite important. The walls are going to be quite important, and the structural columns. Now, the one I prefer to start with are the structural columns. There might be some that are missing, but we can always fill in the gaps a bit later. So the first thing you need to do is go to Visibility Graphics, Import a Graphics, and I need to switch off all of these. And I just want the C on. And I might switch on concrete as well. But I think that's fine because those are all my columns in place. So now I need to start establishing some columns. All right, so the first thing you need to do is if you go to Structure and you go to, it doesn't matter, you can access the columns both ways. If you're in the Architectural tab and you go to Columns and you pull this down, you've got an Architectural column and a Structural column. So in this segment of the video, we're going to focus on structural columns. Architectural columns work differently. They draw into walls and they function slightly different. Okay. I want to use a structural column for this exercise. I'm going to say structural column, and if I go to, as you click the function, you'll see that I've only got a universal beam. So I need to load. So go to Load Family, and I'm going to go to UK, go down to Structural Columns. Okay, and I need to pull in a concrete structural column, and I'm going to put in a rectangle for now. Okay, doesn't matter, square, rectangle. Generally, it's a rectangle column. I'll just use this for now. Press OK. Here I've got a structural column for now, so I'm just going to put 2 in because you'll find that the sizes might differ, and I'm going to switch on visibility wireframe because if there's a discrepancy, I want to see it. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in, I've got a square one there, and I've got one, my mistake. Let me just do that again, 3D view. One thing when you're placing columns, go back to ground floor, so let's go back to column. So I want a structural column. Okay, just remember you don't want, when you're placing a column, you want it to be a height. And for this exercise, I'm just going to say level 1. So it's going to go from ground floor to level 1 because it's in height. And I'm going to put one over here. I'm going to put one next to the square. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to establish, create the correct size families. Okay, so let's use this one here, DI. So I've got a 460 by 230. So grab this one here and go edit type. I'm going to say rename. Okay, and it's a 460. 460, doesn't matter in which direction you do it. I usually use the larger number first. So it's a 460 by 230, 230, 460. Okay. All right, so this column should be more or less the same size as this column now. So I'll move this, it should. I'm just going to make sure this, grab the endpoints, snap end. Okay. All right, so that's correct. That's a correct size column. If I go to 3D view, you'll see that I've got a column from ground to first. That's all I want for now. I might extend them a bit further, but that's fine. The next one I want to create, I've got to guess that this is probably a 230 by 230. So I'm going to go edit type. I'm going to say duplicate this time. 230 by 230. Okay, 230 by 230. Okay. Great. Okay, we can change the material later. You want the material to match your material that you'll use for your floor slabs if you want to join them. But that's something that we can do a bit later on. For now, we just got to understand I've got a column. So from ground to first. Okay. Now that I've kind of established my sizes, I can delete those. So here I'm going to have a series of columns which are, and we're going to use the center line. So I'm going to go to architectural column again, structural column. Remember, you want this to be height, not depth. And I'm going to take this to my 4th floor because most of these columns will go through to my 4th floor. Okay, I'm going to use the snap intersect. And you'll notice when you place a column, it will start working at grids. It will start working with the grid at every time. So if you move the grid going forward, the column should start moving. So here, I'm just going to keep adding these. It reads so I'm just going to start putting all these columns in play. Okay. One thing that we might have to do is I might have to edit and how these columns work. If you want them to join to the walls, there's a function that we'll have to go and set later on. So that we'll cover in a second. But in essence, this one, I'm going to just place it off. I'll come back and align it. But for the time being, I'm using the grids because I wanted to use the grids to align to. See, this column is slightly off center. I would rather stick to the grid in this instance. These two columns are not exactly in the correct line, but I've got a feeling that might be because of where the lift shaft is occurring. Okay, that's a square column for now. This one, press spacebar. I'm just going to kind of put it in the correct. I'll explain why, because I'll lock and align these a bit later on, especially the ones that are off, are not in the correct direction. So I'm just going to put these spacebar more or less in the correct direction. Okay, I want this to be in line with the grid. Again, in line with the grid. I know it's not exactly in the same line. Align with the grid. I'll come lock and align those in a minute. Align with the grid. It must work with the grid at every time. That one didn't quite work. Likewise with this one. Likewise with that one. That's a square. Spacebar. Do that. Put this one over there. This one I want to align with the grid. Align with the grid. Okay, align with the grid. Those ones I'll come sort out in a minute. It's got something to do with the wall, no doubt. Put that there. And then this one I'm going to put there. This one I'm going to put over here. I'm going to use the align function a bit later to come back and sort those out. Okay, I'm going to align this with the grid. Create similar. Fourth floor, let's correct spacebar. Align with this grid. It's the center line of the grid, likewise with this center line of the grid. Okay, so I've got most of those in play. I'll put this one over here, put this one over there, and then put that one over there. I'll come lock and align those a bit later. Now I'm going to change it to my squares. Yeah, this one should work perfectly. Snap with those grids, likewise with here. Snap with the grids, snap with the grids, perfect. Snap with the grids. This one's not quite, so I'll snap it to that. Likewise with this. And likewise with that. Likewise, that one's slightly off. There might be a reason for that. You know, these are slightly off. You would think that those would work. I might do that because it's a very small adjustment. Because I'll probably assume that these drawings have been recreated, so you might find there will be inaccuracies based on whoever surveyed the drawings. But generally, a structural engineer is trying to work in a strict grid. Okay, this one I'm going to change for now because this should technically be a 460 by 230 spacebar. Okay, so that's fine. I can lock and align that later. All right, I've kind of got my grids into play. I'm going to use my line tool. That one with that. That with that. Okay, that with that. That with that. You might find it's got something to do with the wall. But these columns you can start aligning later. Okay. If things don't quite work out. So here I'm just making sure that these things line up. You might find I have to line it again. Okay. There might be some minor adjustments that we might have to do a bit later on, but that's fine. Likewise with this. I can line it to there. And I'm going to align it to there. Okay, those might all have to line up, but I've got a reference plane to do that for me as well. Do this like that. Okay, maybe lock and align that to the center of that grid, which would work better. These ones I've got no alignment. Use that wall, that might be a good option. Yeah, these I'm slightly concerned about. I'm going to put them in the center of the wall because an engineer wouldn't put columns off center that much. Okay, so a lot of this, sometimes you've got to use your discretion. Likewise with that, center line, that's fine. Likewise with that, center line, and then this is the little square. Okay, this one is slightly off center. I want to leave this on center, especially these square ones. I don't like the fact that it's rare that the engineer would do that, in my opinion, by that amount. Generally, they try and keep the thing on the line. It must be a very good reason for to move it off, but we'll see. We'll see what the alignment looks like there. Okay, but essence. Okay, so I've got all my structural columns in place. The next thing we need to do is try to see if they go, which ones will stop where and how. Okay, but in a nutshell, I think this is starting to take shape. Put all my columns in the correct place. Okay, so it looks like I've established the majority of my columns. There's one missing here, so put this one here, spacebar, align, that. Again, it is rare that they'll put that off center to such a degree. There must be a very good reason, but that's something that we can explore a bit later on. Align. Very rare that they do that. Okay, in a nutshell, I'm happy with my columns for the time being. If I go to my 3D view, okay, so now we just need to start establishing, so you can see our columns are coming through. If I switch my line weights, my structural columns are coming through, and you can see by and large these things line up. So here you might find it's because of the step. Okay, that I can understand. That I can understand because there's a stair here. Likewise, I can align that with that back of the column because we want it to line up with the wall. And that kind of works with that. That's perfect. Otherwise, yeah, they wouldn't do that. Otherwise, I think we're good. And these columns go up. So all these columns come to this floor, which is perfect. Go to second floor. All right, so here we're having a situation where these columns might not go up anymore. Let's just go to my third floor. Yes, they don't. So these floors, these columns all stop. I'm going to select this column, this column, this column, this column, this column, this column, and this column. Those columns will stop at level 2. Okay, so if I go to there they are there, but they won't be on this floor anymore, which will help because going up it works well. And you can see that there's been inaccuracies here. These columns work, and you can see these slight inaccuracies in these models, which is interesting. I can see these all. I must double check because on ground floor I think those things lined up. It's rare that an engineer will move those off. You can see that, so that's an error for the level above. That is a boo-boo. Okay, so that kind of information we need to, and then all these columns will also stop. These will stop at level 2 as well. Okay, so the rest of these columns will go up. Okay, so in a nutshell, you can see straight away these architectural columns now are starting to work well. So now we've got columns that stop at the correct levels. I like to work with my columns first because they are the bones of the building. Okay, and what is interesting, your structural grids will move with them. Now, what I try and do is, you can either draw your walls to stop at each column, or what I tend to do, it's up to you. I go and edit the family, the structural column family, okay? And what I do is I incorporate, so here you can put a symbol cut with voids, which I activate for the family itself, and then I create a void extrusion, and I just put the void anywhere for now, finish. Problem with this void that it tries to cut the column generally, which you don't want it to do. So I'm just going to say cut, uncut geometry. So I'm going to go with that. So now you can see the void. Go back here. I'm going to go and edit extrusion. So these I'm going to lock and align to these reference planes so that they get driven with the shape of the column. The reason why I'm putting this cut object in this void is so that it will cut the walls out automatically for me. Okay, all right, so that's all I need to do. So my elevations and front elevation, that's fine. I just need to make sure that this works with this level. Remember, columns work from level to level. Okay, so that's why you need to lock and align it to the levels. Okay, load into project, and you're going to say override existing version. Okay, so all that I've done is I've provided a cutting object for these columns. So if you put a wall and a column together, they will start working together. Okay. All right, so that's the first part of the equation. So in this view, I'm going to go to VG. I'm going to go and switch on all my walls now. So hopefully they've worked correctly. I'm going to switch on walls, dry walls, dry walls. I'm just going to switch on all my walls for now. Okay. Okay, so now they haven't worked very well. So let's go to VG. I'm just going to import a categories. I'm just going to switch on, say all. I'm going to switch them all on. Okay. Okay, so now I want to go and identify what type of walls we have here. So let's see, I've got to guess that these are going to be 115s. Generally, we use 110 or 115. It depends from practice to practice. 230, and I think there was a cavity wall over here, and there's some other cavity walls over here. So this is a much bigger cavity wall. That's a 3, 4, 5 cavity wall over here, for example, and here we've got a 300 cavity wall. So we need to make some wall types first off. And certain wall types, you might have to have a finish on the inside and a face brick on the exterior. So here you'll find, and that's some of the stuff we can overwrite in elevation as well. But for now, I just want to make sure you can see there's a lot of face brick, but internally you'll find that those are, so for example, here you got a plastered panel, and that we can tackle a bit later. So we've got face brick in some instances, and we've got plaster on the exterior. So there's going to be a series of walls that we'll need to establish for the time being. But what I want to focus on in this part of it is the external walls, how high they go and where they stop more or less. So I need to establish about 3 wall types, a curtain wall type, because this will be a curtain wall over here. I see there's another curtain wall over here. And we've got a cavity wall over here, we've got a cavity wall over here. So in this, I'm going to go and establish some wall types. Okay. So architecture wall, remember, when you're going to start drawing the wall, I want it to be a height, not depth. And here I'm going to restrict it for the time being. I'm going to restrict it to level 1. So it goes from ground to level 1. You can make it unconnected, which is 8 meters high generally. But generally, I'm going to work from ground to first, just to start establishing some walls. So I've got a stud wall, which I might have to create here as well. I've got, for this model, I'm not going to create the internal stud wall, because generally, these type of projects, that stuff gets cleared out and gets demolished in any case. But I might establish some of them just for the sake of modeling. But I'm more focused on establishing the external walls, the bathroom walls, the stairs, and that kind of thing. So this starts, I've got a 230 wall over here. So first I'm going to go and select a 230 masonry wall. And the location line of the wall, I want core face exterior. I'll explain that a bit later. And it's a 230 wall, and if I start drawing spacebar, because this is the exterior side of my wall, okay, so I've got my first type of wall that I need to establish. I'm going to create similar. I'm going to put the wall over here, face, remember, core face exterior, and I've got another wall over here I need to establish, wall, core face exterior. Okay, so I need to make a wall type over there, need a wall type over there, wall type over there. I've got a stud wall that I need to establish as well. We can start using center lines, exterior lines for the time being, and I've got a 1-1-10 wall that I need to maybe establish over here somewhere. Again, keep the settings, core face exterior. You can use core center line or wall center line for this instance. Revit tries to find the center lines. Okay, so I need to make some adjustments. I know that these are 115 walls, so I'm going to grab the 110 wall, edit type, and I'm going to rename this. Okay, so wall, I'm going to create this a 115. Okay, and in the structure itself, you always use the function is always going to be substrate for masonry walls. If it's a concrete wall, it's a structural wall, you'll then use structure for it. But in this case, it's a substrate, it's a 115 wall. Okay, now you'll see here's your core boundary. So when you're using that core option to select your walls and dimension your walls, whatever's inside the core will be dimensioned, whatever outside the core won't be dimensioned. So the substrate is generally the core layers. The finished layers are outside of the core boundary. So for example, this will be my internal walls. Press OK. So here I'm going to go and say duplicate. I'm going to call this 115 ENT masonry. So this is my interior masonry wall. Okay. Interior masonry with plaster, PL for plaster. Okay, and it's an interior wall. The function is an interior wall. Okay, edit type. Here I'm going to go and insert 2 more layers. So that will be up, this will be down. Okay, now you can see by default that it will give you a finish, but I'm going to make it finish 1.4. This will be 15 mils, so your plaster will be 15 mil, and then this will be another finish layer 1.4, and this will be 15 mil. Okay, so that's correct. That masonry layer is correct. Now for the material for your finished, just remember the outside of the core will be plaster. I'm going to Control C, Control V. Okay, go to preview. Now you can see I've got the plaster layer. The green line indicates the core boundary, so I've got a masonry core and then a finished layer again. Press OK. Press OK. All right, so now this wall, technically, switch off line weights, you'll see that it's got 2 layers. Here's my core layer. Oh, yeah. If you've established a core boundary for a wall when you use dimensions, so the first time if you go to annotate, linear dimension or, sorry, a line dimension, you must tell your dimensions to use the core face of core. So now you'll see when it dimensions is that wall, it's a 1:5 wall. Okay, yes, we've got a finished layer, which is correct. It's got 2 lines of plaster. So if I went to shaded view, so here's my plaster wall plaster. Okay, this is important. So, okay, so great. So I've got my first wall type, which will be my internal plaster walls. Most of these walls will be plastered. Okay, so here I've got a masonry wall plastered both sides. Okay, great. Now I'm going to have an external wall which will be plastered on the inside but faced on the exterior side. So wherever the switch handle is, that's the exterior side of the wall. So I'm going to go to edit type. So here I'm going to say duplicate. I'm going to say masonry exterior. This will be a 230 exterior, and then PL int. So it's plastered inside. You just need to get naming conventions that help. It's not a soffit, it's an exterior wall. Okay, and its structure. Substrate is correct, it's 230. Okay. Now you'll see this is the exterior side of the wall, interior side of the wall. I need to insert another layer. I'm going to move it down. This will be finish 1.4. That's 15 mil, and that's plaster. In the preview, that's correct. Press OK. Press OK. Because I've used the core, because my wall's using the core face exterior, so the line of which it controls is on the exterior side of the wall. Okay, that's correct. So that's working well. Let's pull this down to here. So when I join these types of walls, so if I grab this wall, for example, create similar, and I join these walls, you'll notice that the plaster joins correctly. That's what you want. Okay, and if I dimension this wall, it won't select the finish at all. It will only select the core of the wall, which is correct. Okay, so now we've got our walls and we've got our architectural columns. Okay, and I can go back to hidden, and you can see it's starting to show correctly. And if I switch my line weights, things will start looking a lot better. Okay, you've got a finish layer here, which I'll show you how that works in a minute. But you, in essence, you're seeing the finish as well. But technically, what you're seeing here is 100% correct. Perfect. Okay. Likewise with this wall over here. All right. Go back to hidden because I want to, in case something goes wrong, and switch my line weights. Okay. Now I need to establish an exterior cavity wall with an internal plaster line. So here I'm going to duplicate this wall. 300 EXT. You only can just say cavity. Cavity ENT plaster. Okay. So here we're going to say insert. So we're going to have substrate. This is going to be an air layer. and that will be a substrate. Okay, then on the internal, so we're going to insert one more, we're going to move that down. That will be finish 1.4, that will be 15, and that will be plaster. Okay, it's recognized the material already. Control C, Control V, and this will be air. So 115, 115, and this will be 70. And remember, it's an exterior wall. It's okay. So here we go. I've got my cavity wall, which is exactly 300. Okay, and if I go trim, you see it's put the plaster in around the column, which is correct. So now I've got an external cavity wall. Okay, we'll start looking how high these walls go up in a minute. So that works well. Okay, now I think this is a plastered wall interior, internally and externally. Okay, so we'll need to have a look at that elevation. So let's just go to, I had an aerial photograph of it. Yeah, so it's plastered. I'm starting to see on all of these walls that it seems to be plastered, but that's an easy fix. So I think for this project, it looks like everything is plastered up. I've got a feeling that these elevations that we got are incorrect, but to me, everything looks plastered. Everything is plastered. Okay, so that's something that we can adjust very quickly. All right, great. Revit. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this wall. So I've put a wall down here, so I'm going to say match. Use the match key. I'm going to match that with that. But this cavity is slightly different. You have a much bigger cavity here. The cavity is 115. So this one, I'm going to say it's a 345 cavity wall, DI. Yeah. So I'm going to say edit type, duplicate. This is a 345. So plastered, I'm just changing it to PL because it's going to be plastered internally and externally. And this layer, I'm going to say insert. I'm going to copy this up. That's finish 1.4. Plaster. Okay, and that's 15. Okay. I'll explain this wraps in a minute. If you say exterior, it always wraps it at the exterior or interior. That you can switch on, especially if a wall's going to terminate. I'll do it for this wall especially. Press OK. Now the last thing I need to do, so that's finished, air layer. This is going to be 115. Okay, press OK. Press OK. Perfect. This wall is going to terminate over here. You'll see that these walls will start forming a correct relationship in a minute. But generally, we'll need to see. There's a column here that works, but that's kind of working. I'm going to edit this wall because it looks like everything is plastered. I'm going to say insert one more layer, move it up, and that is going to be finish 1.4, plaster, and that'll be 15. It's okay. It's okay. Great. So now you can see the plaster wraps nicely. Okay, great. So if I go to my 3D view, you can see my walls are plastered. We can start playing with the colors a bit later on. Okay, you probably won't see the columns because the columns will be stuck in the plaster, which is correct. So in this instance, that's going to help a lot. Here we've got another plaster line. Okay, that's great. So the walls are starting to come to place. I'm going to change those as well. So they're going to have an exterior plaster line as well. Edit type. Yeah, I'm going to say rename. I'm just going to say PL plastered. Okay, edit, and I'm going to say, I'm going to go insert, finish 1.4, plaster 15. Great. Okay, so the concrete is encased in the plaster, so you won't see. Generally, they leave score lines, but that you can use on elevations or decoratively. Okay, so in a nutshell, we've kind of got our walls in place. Okay, the next thing I want to do, now that I've got this in place, I'm going to start putting these to the correct locations. This would have stopped right over here, no doubt. So this line will probably come to about there. This one we can adjust. It looks like it comes a bit further. We'll see. It comes to that level more or less. Okay, so that will works well there. So here I'm just going to say shaded. So I'm just going to use a shaded line. I'll do some final adjustments just so that I can see it a bit better. That's a stud wall. Again, let's quickly create a stud wall, duplicate. So here I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to call this a 95 stud. 95 stud. Doesn't matter if it's timber, and this will be ENT. Okay, just make sure this is an interior wall. Edit. Okay, so this will be 95 substrate. Okay, so I'm going to go insert up. That's a plaster board, but you can just use the plaster layer for that as well. And that will be down. This is 1.5. This will be 2.5 because the finish won't work the same way as a mason wall, because this is a plaster board. So let's just type in here, and this is usually 12.5. 12.5 stud. Okay, plaster board. Okay, so there's no plaster board. There should be a plaster board stud. Let me just see stud or plaster board. Wall board, plaster board. We can just use the plaster layer for now. But you can load a plasterboard layer. Okay, let me just see. Gypsum layer. It's a gypsum board. Gypsum wall board, that's it. Okay. Oh, come on. Control C, Control V. So it's a gypsum wall board, and this will be timber. It's a timber stud, so this will be timber, structural timber joist layer. Okay, so that's a stud wall in essence. Okay, same story, exterior core. Okay, so that's a stud wall. Those are studs in essence. Yeah. All right, so the next thing I need to do, I'm going to establish all the exterior walls. So I'm going to grab this wall here, create similar. And remember, I want core exterior because I want to follow the exterior side of the wall. Spacebar to flip it. So that's an exterior wall that will go to there. Here's an exterior wall that will go from there to there. I've got a feeling that this wall is incorrect. See, those walls were, there was a misalignment here. So somebody who had drawn this originally had made a real and drawn this that well. Okay, so that's an exterior wall. Here we've got glazing, and I might just do the last glazed wall for now. I'll do the fine tuning of the glazed wall a bit later. Actually, I'll do it now. So technically this wall doesn't exist because it's a stair wall. So let's get rid of that. So create similar. So here I've got an exterior wall, spacebar, exterior wall. I'll just stop it over here. Exterior wall. I think there's something else going on here if I remember looking at the floor plans correctly. That will do that. That will do that, spacebar. Okay, trim that with that. We'll put the doors in a bit later. Trim. This is an exterior wall. An interior wall I might treat it a little differently. Okay, and then I can trim that with that. Basically, what I want to do is just make sure that these walls go to the top. This wall also ends differently, so it won't end in the cavity, it will end in the solid, but that's fine. I mean, we can use we can change how that looks at the end as well. We can wrap the masonry. Those get tricky, but for now, in a nutshell, I'm happy with that. Okay, so if I go to edit type, you'll notice that if I go to edit type, it won't allow to wrap. So there we'll have to use a bit of detailing to kind of get that working, or change the wall type itself in essence. But that's something that we can maybe focus on a bit later on that wall. So we can wrap both so that it closes the wall correctly. Okay, that we can focus on a bit later. We might have to create a different type, etc. But in essence, I'm happy with the way this is starting to work. You might find that this wall would, technically it will end TS, it will end in line with the column, for example. And then this will come back, move, so grab that. So 15 mil or 30 mil. Okay, so DI, so I'm going to cut that from there to there. So I'm going to go DI from there to there. I would make it tab until we select that, will be 15. Technically. Okay. Look, plaster, we don't know how thick they're going to get it more or less, but in essence that will work. Okay. Alright, so I've established my external walls more or less. I've got my internal walls set up. I don't think, based on the elevation, I think there's a wall above here. I think if we go to the columns are exposed, there is a wall at the back, and there's like a little door wall and there's a step up. So that kind of information I will tackle a bit later, and you can't quite see what's going on here. But I'm going to make a guess. Okay. Alright, so that's fine. I've kind of established my external walls. Okay, I'm going to create similar. I've got a feeling that's a cavity wall there. A typical create similar. And it might be embedded. So align. No, I think it's a 230 wall. Okay, so let's go and create similar. It depends how they've done this as well. But I think the floors above, I've got a feeling that they...
Fourth floor. Doors opening.
Okay, so my hunch was correct. It looked like they used a 230 wall in this instance. So I'm going to take the 230 wall to about here. So I'm going to stop it to about there. So I would have plastered around it, for example. I would have plastered around the column. I could use a different type of wall where it wraps, so we can make a different type of that. But for now, the reason why I'm doing this as well is you'll see, okay, these walls don't join yet. So if I say join from there, okay, no, they do. Okay, it's just because this wall wraps and this one doesn't. So that's something that we might need to fix a bit later as well. Okay, so what I will probably do in this instance is pull this wall away, and I'm going to tell this wall, I'm going to say disallow join, so that it doesn't join to this wall. That's fine. I'm going to force it to join, which will then join the plaster correctly. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so this wall I'm just going to pull flat to there. Okay, so you've got a plaster layer here. So the return of that wall, you might have to go and change its color, for example. But that's something that we can tackle later. That's the nitty-gritty stuff. So don't worry about that for now. Okay, that will work for me. All right, so I've established kind of where the walls run. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend these walls up quite high and just see how that starts tying in. So I just want to look at the elevations as well, because it looks like plans are not correct in the sense of where this stops. It looks like it's on the ground floor it stops, but on the first floor it continues. So there's going to be, here I can see is that step happening here. So there is something happening on the floors above, which I'll need to look at as well. Okay, but let's assume that some of these walls are going to go right to the top and some are going to stop. Okay, so if I go to first floor, so the bones are starting to come and play. Let's go to the second floor. I think from here things start changing quite dramatically. So how this works, it looks like it's quite different, and I see they've stepped this back. So there's going to be some detailing that we're going to have to do here on these facades. But in a nutshell, from this level up, the walls change quite dramatically. Okay, so Right, so this, yeah, that's strange that the columns have changed so much. I don't think they would have done that. I think here they've made a mess. These columns should line up. Technically, if these columns line up, it looks like this floor. Let me just move this floor. Maybe it's probably, let's move this. Yeah, that looks better. I think I just misaligned the floor ever so slightly. Let's grab this, guys. I want to see if this fixes anything. No, they've just drawn badly. Yeah, they've drawn that very badly. Okay, so some of those things you've got to take a pinch of salt. So, yeah, the typical AutoCAD drawing, these inaccuracies have crept in, which they should not have. That's a problem. So if somebody's trying to build this building going forward, he's a mess now because things don't line up. That is actually poor, very poor. But anyway, I'm going to use the structural columns to kind of take stuff forward. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab all the walls from this level. I'm going to use my filter, check none. I just want all my walls. Okay, I'm going to copy them. I'm going to paste them to my second floor level. Okay, second floor level. If you're just wondering what is going on, it's got to do with the coarse and fine function. I'll leave that on for now. It works well. And I can switch this on to wireframe so you can see through the walls. That's also a good way to do it. Okay, so these external walls, they stop here in essence. So this wall is not there. So these external walls will stop here, go around here, then continue down here. So that was incorrect. So I'm going to say create similar. And they're going to work from the core exterior. They're going to hit this column and come down this way. Okay, there's a step here that we'll have to introduce.
Doors opening.
That looks like it should have continued through. Yeah. See, I've got a feeling that's a mistake from their part. I don't think they would do that.
Closing.
Unless it's a 110 wall below. Let's just go to ground floor, first floor. Yeah, but we'll look on the elevations as well, because we've got a south elevation, south, and we can start seeing the walls coming into play here. So I'm drawing a wall on this floor. We can start seeing where these things lining up, and it looks like they were wrong. Looks like actually is a brick layer here, so maybe this is a ground. Let's go to second floor. So you might find that that would be the case. So let's stop this guy here, pull this back, create similar.
Third floor.
I've got the elevation to kind of sort this out. That's fine. This wall I'm going to pull back, create similar. Core exterior. This is going to be a 110 wall. And then TS up to there. Okay, this, yeah, I see this is slightly concerning, this line here, but that's fine. We can fine tune that. This will trim from there to there. All right, this we can trim. Because those walls seem to stack up, except here where we come back. So align. So those walls seem to stack up, and then this wall will probably align with that facade. But again, it will work on the column. You see that is incorrect because that comes from the floor below. See, inaccuracies. That's what happens. That's what happens. And I'll align that to that. So this floor was drawn very poorly. I used the correct alignment on the exterior side, so you can see these are poorly drawn, but it's given me enough information. Okay. Okay. I don't think this would happen on this floor. No, I just think this trims. It does that. But we can see that wall's in the correct location going forward, and this wall no longer. It does that. Okay, this will trim from there. This wall should have gone straight to there. Okay, let's pull this wall back. Technically that does that, and then this wall will join to there. Okay, if that happens, we can change the way these walls join as well. Okay, so you can go to join. Sometimes these things get different join conditions. So just remember you've got that function as well, which we'll take a little bit later. got a 110 wall here that will run through to there. Again, that's misaligned. So these little gremlins creep in, but that's fine. We can fine tune that stuff now. I'm just establishing the walls. Here we've got shop fronts, and I'll explain it a bit later. Likewise here, this wall, this is a cavity wall the whole time, so get rid of that. This cavity wall will now continue all the way down. So there. Okay, create similar. Again, that will run from the face, exterior. And it looks like that will do, yeah, that will trim. Okay, switch on fine. So here I've kind of got my walls in play. They're starting to work well, and I'll show you how to use your shop fronts in those areas. We've got our columns. So in essence now, I've got to guess, I'm going to take it that these walls will go all the way. So I've got a 3D view. I've got a feeling these walls will meet to the underside of there. We're going to have walls which will come up and down, but for now, I'm happy with the way this is starting to work. I mean, this is pretty rough at the moment, and I'll explain how these things will join later on. Okay, there's some inaccuracies happening here that I need to probably look at as well. But that's fine, we can tackle that in a minute. But now these, you'll find that these levels are going to go all the way to level 5. They'll go to this underside of the roof, for example. All of these levels will go to level 5. Okay, I'm going to select all of these walls, all these exterior walls here. Okay, all of those are going to go to all these exterior walls. The interior walls are different. They terminate to the underside of the slab. You might find these will as well, but that's something that I can have a look at a bit later. But in essence, I'm happy that these will all go to the underside of level 5. So they'll go to the roof level in essence. Okay. And go to my south elevation. Let's start seeing how this is starting to work. I can switch on. What you can do is you can bring the AutoCAD drawing file to the top. So you can say background, foreground. Okay, so these walls have got an offset, so I'm going to switch it offset to 0. So they're going to end maybe, let's see, they probably, how high are these walls here? From this level here, and see how high they'll terminate, more or less 112 by the looks of it. Okay, so all of these walls are going to be up to level 5 plus an additional 1125. Okay, so 3D view 1125. So I'm going to say match. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so I'm going to go match that with that with, oh, no, sorry, undo. Just make sure all these walls. Look, some of them won't, so that we'll need to fine tune a bit later, but in essence, I've got a feeling that these walls will do that. Okay. 1125. Okay. And that will go to level. Okay. Right, so these walls, that's fine. I've got a feeling these are going to go to the underside of level. So let's go to second floor plan. Yeah, so that's correct. First floor. Okay. Elevation. Let's go to north. Okay, shaded. This is my shaded view. Okay, so those levels actually go to the second floor. So a lot of these levels will go to second floor. Here you've got a balcony happening. So those balconies we'll start looking at now. Okay, we'll start seeing how they work. So ground floor, let's go to first floor, let's select all the walls. Let's go to 3D view. So all of these technically go to second floor. We'll double check it now in essence. So I'm just establishing where some of these are. There is a floor here in the middle, but in essence, those floors I think will go to second floor. Okay, and if these walls are the same, we'll tell them to join. I've got a feeling that this will do the same here. I'll need to double check this, but in essence, things are starting to come into place. Here's a floor slab that I need to start establishing, so I'll establish my floor slab in a minute. These will terminate on the underside of the slab, so they won't go through to the roof. Some might, some won't. So where the lift shaft is, they might go through to the top, but we'll tackle those in a minute. Okay, but in essence, okay, I've got the basics coming to play. All right, so let's go to ground floor. So what I need to establish here now is a curtain wall system, because there's going to be a curtain wall in this wall, for example. Let's go to the elevation. I've got a feeling it only goes to the first floor. Yeah, it stops and then it's plastered all the way to the top. And there's a balcony. So that's technically a plastered wall all the way to the top. And it only does, I don't see, there is a slight gap there, but that's something that we might have to tackle later. Okay, there is a difference happening here, but that's fine. So ground floor, okay, I'm going to get rid of that brick wall. I'm going to put in a, okay, so let's go to ground floor. I've got a feeling what they've done is, this is strictly not true where the shop front is. They've built in a second wall floor and now they've put a shop front. So here I'm going to go to architecture, walls, wall, and this will go to first floor. So from ground to first floor, 0, and this will be a stud wall. Okay, so here I'm going to pull this guy and we're going to fine tune this in a minute. We'll go to that column here and then this one will go from there to there. Okay, remember exterior side. So move this in line with where the stud starts. So this is a stud wall that will go from there to there. It will go from there to there. This will go, yeah, bring the AutoCAD file to the front. So select that, say foreground. Okay, I'm going to move this stud wall. So grab the stud wall, I'm going to move it so it starts in more or less the same line. So we've got a stud wall over here, and we've got a stud wall in the front. So if we go to my 3D view, so here's my glass. Just remember how these tend to work. It's pre-set up. The mullions are pre-set up. Just remember they work in a grid system. I need to introduce some vertical grids. So fixed spacing for the, so it's a maximum spacing that we work with. And those are usually at, it depends. We usually use an 1800 or they're usually 2400. Okay. Press apply. But this we can customize as we go along. I just want to get the basics in play. Okay. All right. That works well for me. I'm going to duplicate this. Duplicate. I'm going to call this curtain wall type 2. I'm going to call these windows, because for the first floor, so I'm just going to say window frames, windows, because these are going to be quite customizable. Window sections. Okay, let's say rename. Let's call this windows type 1. Okay. Here I'm going to switch off the maximum spacing. I'm going to leave it as none. Press OK. Okay, no, that's fine. I'm just going to make sure that this is type 2 again. Curtain wall. I'm not too worried about putting the doors in at the moment, so there's some information that needs to start. So that will probably go to that wall over there. This will probably go back to there. Or there's a curtain wall here, but I've got a feeling that if I go back to my ground floor, this will go to there. So there's a lobby where you come in. That's going to be masonry. That will probably go through to there. But in essence, things are starting to work out well. I know where my walls are going. I can start working in these. You'll probably find that these just get duplicated. So you can do one kitchen and bathroom layout and duplicate it all the way to the top. I've got my external walls. I'm not too worried about my doors at the moment. And I've got, okay, I just want to make sure that that's correct. I've got a feeling that that's also poorly drawn. Okay, so let's just go to this view over here. Let's double click over here. I've got a feeling that is incorrect. So let's go to here. Go street view. Don't know why it doesn't want to go to street view for some reason. So let's zoom in. There we go. Let's go down here. Let's look back this way. Now the wall does come out past a little. Yeah, it does. Okay, that's fine. So that does continue all the way to the top. So that's fine. That we can address a bit later. Okay, so in a nutshell, I think we've got something that's starting to work well. This is starting to work well. We just need to start doing some of these walls up correctly. That's starting to work well. We've got some of that where you come in. We'll start focusing on it in a minute. Here we've got a stud wall detail that probably goes back to there, but we'll tackle that later. The steps, okay. All right, so this first floor, I think there's going to be a masonry wall that travels along here. So there's an exterior wall that will go up over here. And I can see there's a detail, but we'll tackle that in a minute. So this is switch on shaded. And I'm going to bring this to the front. The DWG's foreground. Okay, that's starting to work well. And I notice we've got some windows running along here, but in essence, the rest of the stuff is starting to work well. This is working well. Where these steps are, there seems to be like a thick wall that travels. There's like a thicker wall that goes along here, up until here, which is hidden. So that wall, so once it hits the slab, it looks like, so I think in the next video, I'm going to start looking at the slab and then I'll start finishing off the model a bit more as well. Fields, where's the fields again? Why did this jump? There it is there. So, let's zoom in. So it looks like there's quite a thick wall that runs along here. I'm doubting it's that thick. I think it's just the same at the top. Yeah, and you can see there's a shop, some windows that happen there. So that I'll tackle now. That's plastered. This information is not accurate on the floor plans, and I'll need to establish that correctly. Okay, and it would appear that once you go back up on the side here, this is like a double volume where it has like light coming in. You'll probably find this is a floor where you have, we'll tackle that a bit later. So let's maybe look at these windows on the floors above. Okay, so from the third floor upwards, that I'm just going to focus on very quickly as well. Let's go to my third floor. Make sure that this comes through. So foreground. Okay, so here we're going to have embedded windows. So I'm going to go to wall. I'm going to go to curtain wall window type 2. Here I'm going to say, actually, this is going to go from to fourth floor. That's fine, but it's going to offset from the ground. Let's make it 1500 for now. And I'm going to embed this into this wall. Okay, I'm going to embed it into this wall over here as well. Okay, let's go to 3D view. So you see now it's embedding these into the view itself. Okay, just on this third floor level, I just need to change the view range a bit so we can start seeing how that opens up. So here, view range, I'm going to make this 1800 for now. So here you can see it's starting to show how this has opened up. Okay, I'll need to place these in the correct section of the wall, but for now, that's all I'm worried about. I'm just trying to put these windows in the correct place. And what happens on this floor, you'll find will happen on the rest of these floors. I'm just going to put this in there. You can fine tune this curtain wall to work with that. You can start switching off and I can see the line of the window. These usually offset from the front, but I'll fine tune that now. I'm just trying to get them in the correct location. And you might find this one they've put in a curtain wall there, but I'll just leave it for now for what we're trying to do. That will go to there. Create similar, so it'll keep all the settings. Okay, we can start here. Okay, between there to there. Okay, and from there to there. Look, this is very rough for the time being. We will fine tune a lot of this information to there. Okay, so a lot of this stuff we'll fine tune. Okay, because here the way the walls join is not correct. So that kind of stuff we will sort out in a minute. Okay. And you'll find the same thing happens here. So create similar. Okay, and it happens on the back side of this wall as well. create similar. I'm just putting this in roughly, that's the exterior side. Okay, so create similar. We're going to align everything. Once the AutoCAD drawing's out, we can start fine-tuning these things better. Okay, that one didn't embed in the wall correctly, so that one I'll need to sort out. So I'm going to go to VG, switch off that for now. So here we've got an embedded one somewhere along here, so create similar. Okay, so these guys, you know, like start feeding into there. That will meet there, so it meets the architectural column. Okay, this you might have to offset by 15 mil, so that kind of information we'll have to start looking at, how these things wrap. But I mean, for the project, you guys don't have to go into too much detail for now. So, and remember, these always need to face the exterior side, these shop fronts. But what's nice is you've got to do one floor and you copy all this information up. Okay, so all of this information gets copied up. Okay, you might find there's a plaster layer here, so this will have to come back to that line there, for example. There's a plaster line there. And a lot of these will have plaster lines, so you might have to offset it. That information we'll tackle later on. Okay. Anyway, you're just trying to get, this is broad strokes. I'm just trying to establish the fine tuning will happen later on. Okay. That I'll need to address. Okay, so in essence, and you might find this will duplicate up, there's the same thing happening on this level below. So that's third floor, second floor. So exactly the same thing is happening on the second floor, but we can copy all those windows out. So I'm just using the third floor for the time being. So here I'm going to say fine, I'm going to switch on shaded. Okay. Yeah, so I've got a shop front over here. Okay, just remember, make sure it's facing exterior. Generally, these things are offset from the exterior side of the wall by a certain amount. So we'll need to establish that amount as well. Again, I'm going to make sure I align all of these together. So by which I mean, so this is important. Okay, so when a shop front, here it will be offset by a certain amount. Here you see it's leaving that line for me, which is correct. These get offset from the front of this by a certain amount. It's usually 30 or 60. So this, I'm going to say DI. I'm going to say from the front of the column. You see this is not lining up. This wall must line up with this front of the column correctly. So there's these little gremlins in this. That must do that. So that's been done quite poorly again. I'll double check if the windows follow suit here. Let's just go to shaded. So this one I'm going to address straight away. So they offset this DI from the front of this column to the center there. So in this is 90. Okay, so 45. So this is usually offset 60. So equals to 60 plus 45. 105. Okay. It just means that this dimension where they put this in from there to there is 60. Okay, so now I can use my line tool. So I want the center line of this stud. I want to line these all up together. And you just got to do the fine detail on one floor. You're going to duplicate it to the level below. Okay. Again, this must be offset by 115. Let me just get the correct dimension. DI from the front of the column to the center of that. That's 105. Okay, so this guy needs to be offset 105. Align. Okay, but you see your floor plans are starting to take shape. Here needs a bit of fine tuning. That we can sort out later. These things we can fine tune a bit later. Okay, but for now, I'm just making sure that these things align. Likewise with this side. Let's make sure this is going to be from the front of the column. 105. Align. I don't think that's going to have a wall in it, but in essence, that's fine. Align. Okay, and what's nice about this now, elevation, if you go to south elevation, because I've got a feeling that these are all going to be the same height more or less. So I go to south elevation. So you can see now these things are not the correct height. So I'm going to grab one of them. So I'm going to say it must align to the bottom here. And I've got a feeling they're all going to be the same. So you can see the windows are starting to. So all of these need to offset from the ground floor by 9. Yeah, that technically won't be correct. 930, I think. 930, 950. I'm going to make it 950. I don't think that's correct what they've done. Likewise with this. And you can see these do go to the top. These windows go right to the top. So let's pull this. Oh no, they don't. Okay, so I'm just going to fix one and I'm going to match the properties with all the rest of them. So this will go to the top. So let's see, it offsets by 300. So it's left a 300 gap and we've offset from the ground 9. Okay, so that's great. So in 3D view, so this is the correct window. They all need to match. So match that with that, 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 with that. Match that, that, that. Okay. So in essence, now we've got a third floor. Okay. So all I'm going around now is establishing these objects more or less. So third floor. So second floor. I'm not going to put the second floor's information in just yet because I'm going to copy them from the floor above. Here I've got 2 again as well. So let's go to second floor, first floor. So here we've got 2 of those windows. First floor. So here's a slight difference again. My first floor, second floor. Here we're going to have 2 windows as well. So how these work we need to establish as well. But it's got something to do with the slabs. Anyway, okay, that's fine. Okay. In a nutshell, second floor. Let's go to first floor. Let's just see what's going on. First floor, second floor. So there's a balcony over here. There's a balcony over here. Yeah, I think the third floor also shows it. There's a balcony that happens on the second floor, which has not been picked up very nicely on this either. You can see there's no line work showing where the balcony ends, which again is poor. Okay. Right, but I'm starting to establish all the correct information. My third floor, the windows are starting to look correct. We'll start putting in the correct mullions and when the windows occur. Okay, we'll start putting that information a bit later. This will go until there. Okay, so I just need to align these and let's just say shaded for now. This will need to move and that's just offset from the face of the column. That'll be 105. Okay, then I just need to align. Oh, yeah, remember these always need to face exterior, external, shading with contrast. I think it improves the color a bit. Face exterior, face exterior. Generally, these windows line up with a work desk, like a workstation. Okay, so I'm going to use align. I'm going to select the center line of the curtain wall, embedded curtain wall. And I'm going to use multiple align. I'm going to select that one, so it means it'll keep aligning. It'll keep the command active. Okay, that one. And you'll find that this is going to be the same for the floors above. So what you're doing on this floor is going to be done on the other floors as well. Likewise with your bathroom. Whatever you do in the bathroom here, that's going to be copied up. All this information gets copied up, copied up. Okay. All right, so I'm quite happy with the way this is starting to work out. So ground floor, we've got a shop front here for the doors. Okay, I'm not too worried about the doors for now, and I'm just going to start establishing some staircases. Okay, so that's my next. I'm going to start working up some staircases. So I'm going to go to architecture, stairs. All right, so I'm going to use a cast-in stair at a time. There's some settings. Generally, for most commercial buildings, the runs are usually 1 meter, more or less, sometimes greater. But in essence, for this is fine. So your maximum rise is always 170, 250. So this has already been set up in your. Just one thing I've noticed is the run type. This was incorrect. This one, there should be nothing here. So just remove. There's no tread thickness at all. All right, press apply. Okay, press OK. I'm going to do this rough. Okay, so there's a step that starts here and goes to here. Okay, it's just giving me an area over here. So let's go to run type. I'm going to switch this off tread. You don't need tread. Sorry, that was what was wrong. Press OK. So here I'm just going to say run. So I'm going to start here to there. I've got a feeling that this will from there to there, and it's going to go back up there to there. Okay, so in essence, I've created my first stair. I'm not worried about the nitty-gritty detail for now. And there's a wall that's going to go around it. I'm going to delete the hand railings. Okay, so in essence, I've got a step. I've stopped it 1 stair short because I'm going to use the floor slab to correct that for me. But in essence, I think if we looked at the floor plans, that step does go around. You see it goes around and then probably goes back up to that last level. Okay, but that's information that we can fine tune. We'll probably have to go and have a look at the floor plans to kind of make that work a bit better. But first floor level, yeah, that kind of works, and the stairs stops and you come out here. So that is correct. So you go around, up and down. This step over here, so from ground floor to first, it's going to go this and then back up. So I'll do the fine tuning of the steps a bit later on. But in essence, I'm just establishing where they start more or less. So it'll go to there and then go from here. I'm going to stop at 1 short. Okay, and I'm going to move this. It creates the landing automatically. We might have to recreate some of these sometimes because the way the landing works, but in essence, so that stops at the correct level. Okay, so for now, on that level, that's all we have. So from ground to first, let's go to 3D view. I'm going to get rid of the hand railings for now, so they're not necessary. Okay, ground floor. So for first floor, so from first floor going up, you'll find that these stairs will just go in. So this I can get rid of. So hide and view, hide element. So from first floor going up, these stairs change. And there's another type of stair here. So it looks like it's an internal stair to get you out on this landing. So I'm going to take a guess as this will do that. You come out here and then you'll go up and up and up and up. Okay, so I'm going to grab my stair again. So on this level, I'm on level 1. It's going to go from first floor to second floor, which is correct. So it's going to start here in the middle, more or less. Go to there, and let's go from there. And I'm going to stop one remaining. Okay. Now, with this step, we're going to change the step because this step is going to go. It's going to duplicate a number of times. Okay. So here I'll need to change the way the step goes because it's going to go. It might go a couple times. Okay. So that will work for now, and I'll explain how we'll change that step in a minute. Because this step will have multiple levels, and we'll have to tell it to duplicate multiple times. Okay. Likewise with the step, it will change again because I've got a feeling on the second floor or third floor it becomes more of a traditional stair. This one's going to work well. Get rid of the. I want to get rid of the railing on the outside. You see these stairs don't quite line up, but I think that's just poor from their side. the lift shaft should go straight through. So I'm taking my ground floor. I'll fine tune this, but I'm just trying to get the stairs and get my circulation in. So create similar. Let's go back to the first floor. So here I'm going to have another step. So I'm going to go from here. Yeah, switch off automatic. Yes, automatic landing. And I don't want, I'll switch off the railing ladder. Okay, so it looks like from so it looks like you go in this direction. You go to here, and you go from there to there, and then you go from there, one remaining. Okay, so it looks like they've built these. I'll just fine tune. Okay, so this is done pretty badly. So let's do that again. So just to make this work. So it looks like you get 2 steps to start with. So you get 2 steps to start with, and you get another series of steps here, and then you get another series of steps here. Okay, I've just established it. I'll do the fine tuning a bit later on. I'm just trying to establish, so let's see how many remaining. That's fine. Okay, so this step we've established. Okay, so now with this step, edit step, you'll find that this step won't, it's going to duplicate a couple times. Okay, so we'll need to tell this step that it's going to be a multi-level step. Okay. Okay, for now, I'm quite happy. The next thing I'll try and do now is establish sections. I've got my steps in, I've established my walls. So I'm just going to start creating some sections because I need to start, especially through the steps, I need to start working up how these work. So I create a couple sections. These are just working sections that I'm going to use to fine tune the steps. Okay, for now that's fine. So if I go to my sections, so like for example, this step, I'll need to take up one more. Okay, so for this video, I've kind of established the steps. The lift shaft, I'll bring in a bit later. I've got a family that I'll use for the lift shaft. Okay, let's quickly do that, ground floor. So lift shaft, I'm going to establish the lift shaft and stairs. Enclosure, so I'm going to go create similar. Now this wall is going to go from the right up until the underside of the roof. Okay, and I'm going to use a core face exterior. My mistake. Because these walls technically will go right to the roof as well. Yes. Yes. Create the wall, create similar. Now these walls are going to go all the way to the and then create one more, create similar. Now there's a little cupboard underneath here, but that's fine. So these walls, they build up to the slab, but these walls technically will go right to the roof for the time being. Because it's your lift shaft and it's your stairs, because it's going to determine your stairs. And a lot of these, where the stairs go up and down, especially on the floors above, they're also going to work in the same way. Okay. So in essence, I've established the next video. I'm going to fine tune how these start working correctly, and I'm going to create the bathroom layout, which I'll then share later on as well. So that will be in my next video. I hope this was helpful.